Hey guys, tonight we're diving into a mystery that has intrigued historians, astronomers, and myth lovers for centuries. Imagine you're standing in ancient Babylon, a city renowned for its towering ziggurats, grand gardens, and bustling markets. It's a clear night, and as you look up, you're used to the familiar sight of stars filling the sky. But tonight something is terribly wrong. All the stars have vanished. No twinkling lights, no shimmering constellations, just an empty, black expanse stretching from horizon to horizon. You blink, rub your eyes, check again. Still nothing. A sky stripped bare. Not even a flicker. You start to wonder if you've gone blind. But no, you can still see the torches flickering on the streets below, the faint glow of oil lamps from high balconies. It's not you. It's the sky. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. It's always interesting to hear how different parts of the world experience time, especially when we're about to dive into such a timeless story. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You stand frozen, heart thudding faintly against the calm of the desert night. The air is unusually warm. A gentle breeze brushes against your robe, but it doesn't soothe your nerves. This isn't just a dark night, it's a wrong night. You feel it deep in your gut, the same way a dog knows when an earthquake's coming. Something ancient inside you is stirring. A few others notice it too. A child clutches his father's hand and points upward, confused. A street vendor snuffs out his fire and looks around, squinting at the heavens like they've personally offended him. Even the drunkard in the alley has stopped mumbling, frozen mid-hiccup as he gazes upward in disbelief. The stars have always been there. They are your calendar, your compass, your God's diary. Tonight, they're gone. And the silence that follows is almost ceremonial. No dogs barking, no drunk laughter, no creak of wagon wheels, just stillness. You shuffle forward through the darkened streets, passing sandstone walls and wooden doorways carved with protective symbols. Every few houses, a shrine flickers faintly. Marduk's eye, Ishtar's sigil, Nabu's scroll. You pause beneath the temple's shadow, hoping for some sense of order, of reassurance. The temple guards are talking in hushed tones, even their bronze weapons held closer to their chests. You can tell they've noticed too, but no one dares raise an alarm. What do you even call this? It's not a fire. It's not a flood. It's a celestial absence. A vanishing. Above the rooftops, you can barely make out the silhouette of a Temenanki, the towering ziggurat that's supposed to connect heaven and earth. Tonight it just looks smaller, like someone cut the rope between the two. Historians still argue whether this event really happened, or whether it was a myth amplified over generations. Some suggest it could have been a vast dust storm or volcanic ash cloud that veiled the stars. Others propose supernatural interpretations. Babylonian records hint at a time when the heavens closed their eyes. What's agreed upon is that something so disturbing, so abnormal, took place that it would be remembered for centuries. As you continue walking, your mind flicks through recent omens. There was that river that ran strangely red last week, the goat that refused to be sacrificed, the merchant who claimed he saw a flame spiral upward and vanish. Were they all warnings? Is this the result? You finally stop near a canal bridge, resting your arms against the warm stone, a soft ripple of water below. The city behind you feels tense. You can't see the moon. You can't even see Venus, the morning star, the bright jewel of Ishtar. That one's usually so loud in the sky it practically yells, "You are not alone." But tonight, silence. Cosmic silence. You wonder what the royal priests are doing right now. Surely they've noticed. Surely the ones who read the stars like holy script are panicking, or pretending not to. There's no emergency bell, no public wailing. Just this aching blankness above you. One man, wrapped in thick wool and smelling like roasted onions, walks past you, muttering, "The gods have turned their backs, mark my words." You pretend not to hear him, but your hands won't stop trembling. Your gaze returns upward, searching, hoping. But the heavens remain mute, an infinite void where the constellations used to dance. The scorpion is gone, the great twins are gone. The archer, the goatfish, the lion, all missing as if plucked from existence. And just when you think you see a flicker, It turns out to be a burning torch reflected off a high window. Your heart sinks again. At some point you realise you're not the only one keeping vigil. Across the rooftops and temple stairs, others are doing the same, scattered silhouettes, quietly watching. Silent astronomers, unspeaking priests, restless souls waiting for a sign that the universe hasn't fractured. One joke does come to mind. If you had a drachma for every star missing tonight, you'd still have nothing. Eventually you peel yourself from the bridge and start heading home, steps dragging. The night feels stretched, as though time itself is holding its breath. A stray cat mews beside a cart of figs, and the sound almost startles you. You smile faintly. At least the cat's still here. That has to mean something, right? But as you close your door, pull the heavy curtain shut and blow out your lamp, you lie in your bed with eyes wide open, facing the darkness above, and for the first time in your life, the ski doesn't look back. You wake up the next morning to the scent of date bread and the low murmur of neighbours chatting in the courtyard. For a moment you forget the night before. The warmth of the sun peeking through the slats of your shutters, the clink of clay cups, even the hum of temple bells. Everything feels so ordinary, so intact. Then it hits you. You throw open the shutters and look to the sky. But it's morning, of course. The sun is out, blazing across the city like nothing ever happened. The stars are gone, but now they should be. Your mind races with questions. Was it real? Did anyone else see it? Or did you dream the whole thing? You step into the narrow alley, where the white walls of homes are already soaking up the desert heat. A young boy runs past with a goat on a string, giggling as if the sky hadn't collapsed. A water seller passes you, shouting prices. And across the courtyard, two women argue over the quality of lentils. Life, apparently, has resumed. But not for you. Your feet turn automatically toward the heart of the city, toward Etemenanke, the massive temple tower that rises like a stairway to heaven. This ziggurat is more than architecture. It's the spine of Babylon, the very connection point between gods and men. If anything or anyone can make sense of what you saw last night, it's here. As you walk, the streets widen and sharpen. Granite and brick. Arched gates carved with lions and bulls. Vendors line the paths, selling trinkets, olives, tiny baked fish wrapped in leaves. But the chatter has a nervous edge. You catch fragments. Said he couldn't see the moon at all. The stars went black, I swear it. My cousin in Borsippa says it looked normal there. You slow down. Others did see it. It wasn't just you. The sky really vanished. Near the Ishtar Gate you pass under the towering blue tiles glazed with mythical beasts. The sacred lions stare out with fixed eyes, eternally mid-prowl. Inside the gate, guards in feathered helmets keep order, but even they seem distracted. One keeps looking up at the sky, even though it's empty blue now. Just habit, maybe. Or fear. The ziggurat is close now, its steps carved so sharply they look like a stairway built for giants. At the base you hear chanting. Monks, or more accurately the Chaldeans, the elite priest astronomers of Babylon. These are the ones who read the sky like a book, who whisper to gods through the placement of stars. If anyone is losing sleep right now, it's them. You ascend slowly. It's not just the stairs, it's the weight. The realization that you're not going to find comfort at the top, only more questions. The platform buzzes with quiet urgency. Scribes pace in their robes, clay tablets clutched like lifelines. Astronomers squint through polished obsidian lenses, double-checking. Nothing. There's a brazier burning, and beside it, an older priest is hunched over a tablet. He doesn't even look up when you step forward. You clear your throat softly. He waves you off, muttering in Akkadian, but you stay. And finally he sighs, straightens and glances your way. You saw it, he says. You nod. He nods back slowly. So did we. He turns the tablet toward you, revealing a diagram scratched in haste, a sky chart with no points, just a black square where constellations should be. We have no words for this, he says. The skies never failed to answer. Historians still argue whether this account was a poetic interpretation of a real astronomical phenomenon or a religious allegory that evolved into myth, but fragments from actual Babylonian clay tablets, written in cuneiform, do exist, describing periods of darkness above the firmament and nights without signs. One theory suggests a regional dust veil caused by volcanic eruption, scattering light and blocking stars. Another fringe theory oddly popular among amateur historians and TikTok pseudoscientists, claims it was a passing rogue planet. Take your pick. Back on the ziggurat, the priest lets you sit beside him. You watch as a young scribe returns breathless. No change, he says. Still no visibility from the east wall. The sky is mute. Mute, the priest repeats almost reverently. That's a new word for it. A few of the others whisper together, most of them debating what this means. You overhear snatches. Is it Nergal? A punishment? No, Ishtar is wounded. The morning star's absence proves it. Perhaps a demon ascended. You realise with a start that even the most educated minds in Babylon are just as confused as the fishmongers in the streets. The difference is vocabulary. One of the older scribes lights a small brazier and tosses in a bundle of reeds. A puff of smoke swirls upward, and he watches the way it twists. Even the smoke does not rise straight, he mutters. It's not just the stars. Something else is off. You're offered a sip of barley tea, lukewarm and bitter. You drink it anyway. The ziggurat is quiet now, only the soft scratching of styluses on clay and the rustle of robes in the breeze. Occasionally someone checks the horizon. Nothing. A younger priest approaches the elder. Should we begin preparation for the full rite? The elder frowns. Not yet. Let us wait for confirmation from Ea. The idea that this might not be limited to Babylon chills you. If the stars have gone dark everywhere. No. You shake the thought, too early to panic globally. Still, you can't ignore the feeling crawling up your spine. You glance skyward one last time before descending the stairs. A pure blue expanse greets you, innocent, blank, deceptive. As you make your way back into the city, the noise of daily life feels staged. The people are trying too hard to act normal. A man selling pomegranates keeps glancing over his shoulder. A girl drops a jug and doesn't even flinch at the crash. You wonder if this is what the end of a world feels like. Not fire, not flood, but silence from above. And in Babylon, silence from the stars is the loudest omen of all. You take the long way home, partly because you're hoping to hear someone, anyone, offer an explanation that makes sense, and partly because you're stalling. Deep down, you know something isn't just broken in the sky, it's broken in the world. You trail along the eastern edge of the Euphrates, where fishermen haul their nets and call to one another, but even here the tone is off. Not hushed exactly. Just wrong. Near the riverbank, you pass by the outer wall of the Temple of Nabu, scribe god and keeper of destiny. A pair of apprentices are sweeping dust from the steps. One pauses to stare upward, squinting against the daylight. They won't come back, he whispers to the other. You stop walking. The second apprentice whispers something back. Something about punishment, about stolen scrolls. It's all speculation. Everyone has a theory now. You turn toward the city centre again, weaving past herb vendors and bead merchants, until you find yourself once more at the base of the ziggurat. This time, though, you don't climb. You wait and watch as others do. There's a steady stream of white-robed Chaldeans heading up, and from their brisk steps and tight jaws, you know this isn't just another sky check. Something is happening. You hear shouting. Not from the ziggurat, but from below, in the open plaza where offerings are usually made, a small crowd has gathered. You push in gently and see 3 priests, one younger, one middle-aged, and one so old he looks like he's been carved from dried papyrus, arguing in full view of the people. The gods are silent because we ignored the eclipse, says the young one. No, counters the middle-aged priest. This is the work of a demon who has devoured the stars. The elder priest says nothing for a long moment. Then, in a voice so quiet it makes the crowd lean in, he says, "The gods did not leave us. They are watching to see how we respond without them." Historians still argue whether this reflects a genuine Babylonian theological crisis or a later dramatization by scribes trying to retrofit divine meaning onto natural events. Some clay fragments hint at celestial silence being seen not as punishment, but as a divine test, what scholars today might call a trial by absence. Still, whether that idea came from terrified priests or clever theologians trying to salvage faith, that remains uncertain. The old priest raises both hands and calls for calm. "To the ziggurat," he says. "Let us seek answers from the heavens, even if they refuse to answer." And with that, the crowd follows. You follow too. Not because you expect answers, but because at this point anything is better than standing alone in ignorance. Back at the ziggurat's base, a line has formed. Not of officials, but citizens, Old men with crooked backs, young mothers holding babies, shepherds still smelling of pasture. They've come not to protest or panic, but to ask questions, quietly, politely, desperately. One by one they're being let in. Not into the upper chambers, just into the scriptorium near the base, where low-ranking priests record testimonies and distribute ritual instructions. You manage to slip in behind a merchant woman and take a seat on a smooth stone bench. Across from you, a scribe with thick eyebrows and a stylus shaped like a fish looks up. "Name," he says. You give it. "Purpose?" You hesitate. "The stars," you say. "I want to understand why they're gone." He doesn't even blink, he just nods and makes a mark on a tablet already full of hash lines. "Many are asking," he murmurs. At the next bench, a farmer is offering a hen as an unofficial offering. He has no appointment, no form, just the bird and the hope that someone might take it. A priest accepts it wordlessly and disappears through a beaded curtain. You lean in. "What will they do with it?" The scribe shrugs. "Probably divine its entrails. See if they form a message." You're about to laugh, but you don't. Not today, not after last night. Besides, Babylon has always believed that the gods speak in symbols. Liver spots, the swirl of incense smoke, even the shape of a cloud. With the stars gone, you suppose they have to find messages somewhere. The scribe writes something else down and glances at the curtain. "The chief astronomer is speaking with the king." That perks you up. "Now?" He nods. "Has been for hours." You want to ask more, but the woman ahead of you begins sobbing quietly. She clutches a small idol of Ishtar, its paint chipped from years of handling. "She's not speaking to me," she whispers. "She always used to appear in dreams." "No one is speaking," someone mutters. "Even the dreams are quiet." Dreams, of course. In Babylon, dreams are sacred conduits. The idea that even dreams have gone mute is almost worse than the sky. You finally leave the chamber. It's too thick with fear. Too many people asking the same unanswerable question. Outside, the sun is already dipping low. You consider going home, but your legs move elsewhere, toward the narrow streets of the Scholars' Quarter, where the city's most eccentric thinkers live. You've heard of one in particular, a Chaldean named Bal-Aki, who once predicted a drought by watching the way sand settled in a jar. Supposedly he speaks to the wind. Worth a shot. You find him seated cross-legged in a courtyard, surrounded by clay figurines and bird bones. He's muttering something to a broken pot. You wait until he pauses to sip water, then clear your throat. "You know why they're gone?" you ask. He squints at you, then shrugs. "Of course." You blink. "You do?" He leans in dramatically. "They didn't disappear," he whispers. "They were hidden." "By what?" "A great hand," he says. "A divine one. Like covering your eyes when you don't want to see." "Whose hand?" He shrugs again. "Yours? Mine? Who can say whose sins turned the gods away?" You wait, but he's already gone back to the pot. The stars are gone. The priests are guessing. The people are praying. And the wisest man you could find is talking to a broken bowl. You look up one last time before heading home, just in case. Still nothing. Only now you realise it's not just the stars you miss. It's the feeling that something, someone, was watching back. By the time you reach your doorway, night has arrived again. A gentle breeze sways the fig trees near the courtyard, and distant flutes murmur from someone's window. But your eyes, as always now, are drawn upward, hoping, waiting. Still nothing. You step inside, but sleep doesn't come easily. You toss on your reed mat, eyes darting toward the narrow slit in the ceiling where moonlight once crept in. Except tonight, there is no moonlight. Just a faint blur of nothing. You could almost laugh. Once you worried about taxes and trade routes. Now you lie awake wondering if the gods simply decided to erase themselves. You wake groggy the next morning to the echo of footsteps and the smell of stale incense. Something's happening again. You follow the flow of people toward the great market. It's always noisy here. Livestock, baskets of grain, vendors yelling prices you never believe. But today, it's not the noise that draws your attention. It's the hush, a kind of charged silence rolling through the stalls like the first pressure before a sandstorm. Word is spreading. Someone saw the priest climbing the ziggurat in full ceremonial dress. All of them. That never happens unless something's gone terribly wrong, or terribly right. You edge toward a group of older merchants deep in discussion. One is muttering through toothless gums, 3 times last night, I dreamt of a bull walking backward. Another swears he saw a cloud shaped like a serpent that slithered across the moonless sky. They're grasping at signs, anything that might fill the void where the stars used to be. You recognize one of them, Tarek, a seller of dyed linen and a notorious storyteller. "It's the end," he declares, already 5 customers deep in an audience. "I heard it from my cousin's brother's apprentice. The king met with Nabu's high priest, and they say the scrolls glowed red. That means fire. That means judgment." You raise an eyebrow. "You really believe that?" He shrugs. "I believe something. Better than believing nothing." Which honestly is fair. Historians still argue whether this period marked a break in Babylonian cosmology or simply a deepening of its fatalism. Some inscriptions suggest the Babylonians believed the stars didn't just guide fate, they were fate. If that's true, then this starless sky didn't merely represent the loss of celestial light. It signalled the erasure of destiny itself. No map, no compass, just blank. You leave the market and head east, past the artisan quarters, where potters and jewellers are now carving star symbols into their goods, out of longing, you suppose, or superstition. A boy hawks copper pendants shaped like the Great Lion constellation. It's not in the sky, but it might as well hang around your neck. "Wear it," he says, and the stars return. You almost buy one. Almost. Instead, your path winds past the outer wall, where city workers tend to the canals. Normally, this is the part of the city no one talks about. It smells of mud and damp straw, but today, a group of labourers are gathered, heads bowed. One's holding a small clay tablet like it's a sacred object. You draw closer. It's a list, not of goods or rations, but of omens. 3 dreams of birds flying into walls, someone murmurs. "A goat refused to eat," says another. One man claims his wife spoke in tongues, though she's mute. They're documenting signs now, recording the absurd. In any other time, you'd call it paranoia. But now it's data. Back in the city centre, a crowd has formed outside the Temple of Ishtar. The high priestess stands on the marble steps, arms raised. "The goddess does not abandon Babylon," she cries. "She merely tests our faith." A cheer erupts, but it's half-hearted, like a play with too few actors. Some people raise offerings, flowers, jewellery, even a live dove flapping weakly in a straw cage. But more than one person in the crowd mutters under their breath, "If she's testing us, she's being cruel." You don't say it, but you agree. Later that day, near dusk, you find yourself at the edge of the Hanging Gardens. Yes, those Hanging Gardens. The ones tourists in 2025 can't quite agree were real or mythical. You've been here before, but never like this. The terraces are quiet. A few children run between the palms, giggling in defiance of the tension blanketing the city. A gardener waters a lotus plant that refuses to bloom. Even nature seems unsure of what to do. You sit by a fountain where water trickles over lion-shaped spouts, and for a moment, you almost believe everything is fine. But the stars, they haunt the corners of your mind. A scholar sits nearby, scribbling into a wax tablet. You ask what he's writing. "A list of vanished things," he replies. "Things?" He nods. "First the stars, then dreams, then my neighbour's memory of his own birthday." You frown. He shrugs. "I figure if the sky can forget itself, so can we." A joke, probably, but not funny enough to laugh at. As night returns, you join others who have gathered on rooftops and temple stairs, watching, waiting. Still nothing. No glint, no gleam. No constellation peeking through the black. Just the sky, a blank curtain above you. Not angry, not sad, just absent. And so the city begins to change. People pray more, sleep less. Merchants close early. Children are told not to look at the sky. It might curse them. Even dogs whine more than usual. Ears back, tails down. One night, a man wanders into the square dressed in silver paint, claiming to be the Star Reborn. He climbs a statue and begins singing in an invented language before falling asleep standing up. He's still there in the morning, drooling. The city doesn't stop, but it slows, because when the stars go missing, so does certainty. And Babylon is a city that runs on certainty. Now it limps on doubt. You wake to the sound of temple bells. 3 slow strikes. That's the signal for a public announcement, usually about taxes or royal decrees. But today, everyone already knows what it's about. You barely need to dress before slipping out into the street, joining the steady flow of people headed toward the palace plaza. The sun is sharp overhead, the kind that makes clay roofers bake and wheat merchants squint. But no one complains. Not today. You're all wondering the same thing. What could possibly be said that hasn't already been whispered 100 times this week? At the plaza's edge, guards in crested bronze helmets stand at attention. The king's herald, a man with a voice like thunder trapped in a clay pot, steps forward. He holds a scroll in both hands and unrolls it with the kind of ceremony normally reserved for war victories or coronations. You expect grandeur. Instead, you get honesty. The heavens have withdrawn their signs, he announces, his voice echoing off the marble. The stars, once sentinels of fate, now lie hidden. Our astronomers offer no certainty. Our priests pray in silence. The gods are watching. It's not comforting, but it's real. The king himself doesn't appear, which is already telling, but there's something powerful in the admission. Babylon, mighty and ancient, admits that even she is lost. Historians still argue whether this speech was ever recorded or if it was reconstructed from fragments and folk memory. Some clay tablets mention a royal silence followed by mourning, while others describe a decree of humility. Either way, it marks a turning point, a moment when denial gave way to ritualized uncertainty. The plaza disperses slowly like smoke. People return to their homes, but the air feels heavier now. You watch as an old man removes the star map painted on his shop's awning. The brush strokes are careful, almost mournful, like he's erasing a part of his soul. You head west toward the academic quarter. A friend of yours, Amat Shamasha, is a scribe with access to temple libraries. If anyone has theories that go beyond the gods are upset, it's her. She meets you in the shade of an olive tree, brushing clay dust from her robes. Her eyes are tired, her fingers stained with ink. I've been reading the old omen tablets, she says, looking for precedent. And? She blows out a long breath. There's something, a record from over 2 centuries ago. It mentions a blackening of the firmament, but it says it lasted only one night. And we're on what? Night 4? 5, she corrects. So much for precedent. She unrolls a small scroll, revealing tiny cuneiform marks arranged in columns. This one, she taps, describes a sky devoid of signs but followed by a flood. You raise an eyebrow. You think water's next? I think something's next, she murmurs. Another theory floats to the surface. What if the stars didn't disappear? What if they were taken? Amat Shamash doesn't dismiss it. There's a hymn to Ishtar that speaks of a goddess withdrawing her crown of light in sorrow. Some believe that's a poetic way of describing a disappearing star. Or all of them. It sounds beautiful, but terrifying. You leave the scroll with her and return to the streets, now quieter than you've ever known them. You pass a group of children tossing pebbles in a dry fountain. One is pretending to be a priest. "I call upon the stars," he shouts, raising a stick. "Show us your fire." Another child throws a pebble and misses. "They're not coming back," she says. Children are honest like that. That night you gather with others on your roof again. It's become a ritual now, a shared quiet among neighbours. No one speaks. You bring dates, someone else brings figs, another brings wine. It's less about hope and more about habit. Someone breaks the silence with a joke. Maybe the stars are shy. Another. Maybe they finally got sick of watching us mess things up. You chuckle, but it's hollow. Then someone asks the question no one wants to answer. What if they never come back? The silence that follows is too deep to laugh through. The next morning you wander through the Temple of Marduk, where golden idols gleam beneath high ceilings. A priest is burning juniper and humming a chant so old no one knows the meaning anymore. You light a candle, not for guidance, just for comfort. You overhear a priestess telling a foreign merchant that Marduk has turned his face to the west. The man gasps. "So the stars are behind us?" She frowns. No, it means he's disappointed. Later that day, at the public baths, people speak more openly. "I haven't had a dream in 6 nights, one man admits. "My daughter hasn't bled this moon cycle," says a woman, eyes wide with implication. "I heard there's a statue in Sippar that weeps salt," someone adds. It's all unravelling. The very routines that made Babylon tick, agricultural calendars, religious festivals, military plans, are built around the stars. Without them, everything slides just slightly off-centre, and you can feel it, like a pot that wobbles before it shatters. You visit a map maker hoping to purchase a star chart, just to feel normal again. But his stall is shuttered. A wax tablet hangs on the door. Closed until further notice. Sky unreliable. Back at home you look out your window at the Tower of Etemenanke. Usually it glows faintly at night. The temple fires reflecting off polished stone. Tonight it's dark, and somehow that's worse than the missing stars. You lie awake again, heartbeat sinking with the deep, slow nothing above. It's no longer just a missing sky. It's an absence of fate. The days blur now. Not because nothing's happening, but because everything is, just beneath the surface. You wake up early, not because you slept well. You didn't. But because your dreams have stopped. And when you can't dream, staying in bed feels useless. The street outside your window is already active, though not in the usual way. There's less shouting, fewer carts, and an eerie lack of music. Babylon, the eternal city of rhythm and order, is offbeat. It's like watching a parade march with no drums. You follow the scent of honeyed barley cakes toward the central plaza, hoping to fill your stomach, if not your spirit. A food vendor you know nods as you approach, but his face is pale. "You see the shrine this morning?" he asks, voice low. You shake your head. He leans in. "Someone painted over the stars on the temple of Nana." You blink. Nana, the moon god, one of the oldest celestial deities. His temple dome used to gleam silver in the sunlight, ringed with painted stars. "All black now," the vendor mutters, "covered them with pitch." "Who would do that?" He shrugs. "Some say it was the priests, others say it was a warning, or maybe the gods themselves." You buy a cake and walk on, but it tastes like nothing. You pass the temple district and see for yourself. The paint job isn't neat. It drips like tears down the stone walls. The crowd gathered outside is silent, as if standing at a funeral. You notice someone crying quietly. And that's when it truly hits you. This isn't just a city in crisis. This is a city mourning. Historians still argue whether Babylon underwent an actual civic mourning ritual during the starless nights. Some suggest there were formal fasts and lamentations. Others believe the sorrow was more psychological than liturgical. But whatever form it took, there's no denying that Babylon, proud, mathematical, methodical Babylon, had begun to grieve. You stop by a library run by priest scribes. Normally it's full of hushed scholars and the dry scrape of styluses on clay. Today, silence. Inside, the clay tablets are stacked neatly, except one shelf, usually full of astral charts, is empty. A novice explains, "We pulled them. Too many people asking questions we can't answer." Where are they now? In storage, or maybe back in the kiln. You're burning them? Only the ones that promise things that won't happen anymore. It's hard to argue with that logic. You walk through the palace gardens at midday, hoping for a moment of peace, only to find that even nature seems confused. The pomegranate trees are blooming early. A strange omen. Off-cycle harvests usually mean divine unrest. But now you can't tell if anything's truly divine or just broken. A gardener nearby notices you staring and says, "Maybe the gods are rushing everything before they go." You don't respond. You spend the afternoon in a public square where debates often happen. Philosophers, poets, merchants. Anyone with a voice and a theory is welcome. Today, the discussion centres on what's really happening. A man in faded robes stands on an overturned basket yelling, "It's all a test! The gods want to know if we still believe when we can't see." Someone else counters, "No, they're gone. All of them. They've moved on. To another people, another land." Then a third voice, soft but firm, cuts through. Or maybe they're waiting for us to change before they come back. You don't know which theory is worse. Nearby, a woman sits carving small stars into wax tablets and handing them to passers-by. "Hold one," she says, "and you'll dream again." You take one. It feels warm, maybe from her hands, maybe something else. That night, your neighbour, a weaver with a husky voice and a fondness for goat cheese, comes knocking. She's never visited you before. "I couldn't stay in my house," she says. "Too quiet." You make tea. She brings dates. And for a while you sit together on the roof, looking up at the sky that still offers nothing in return. She breaks the silence. "When I was a girl, my grandmother said the stars were the eyes of the gods." You nod. "She said they watched everything. That if you did wrong, a star would wink out." You wait. "She was wrong," she says softly. "We're still here, but all the stars are gone." You don't know what to say, so you just sit there, shoulder to shoulder, beneath a blank sky. Somewhere below, a group begins to chant. It's not official, no priests, no altar, just people, gathered around a fire humming a wordless song that rises slowly into the void. It's not about restoring the stars, it's about being heard or remembered. You listen, you hum too, and for the first time in days, something inside you doesn't feel entirely hollow. Later, alone again, you stare out at the city. Somewhere a dog barks, somewhere a clay pot breaks, life continues, but always under this new sky, a sky that no longer speaks. You hold the little wax star in your hand and whisper to it, just in case it still listens. The next morning you wake to a curious sound. Laughter. Not the drunken kind, not the desperate laughter before tears kind. Real laughter. 2 children chasing a hoop down the street shrieking with joy. For a split second you forget everything. You want to hold on to that sound, bottle it, wear it around your neck like a talisman. But of course, it fades. You step outside and notice something else. The temple bells are ringing in a different rhythm, a pattern not heard in years. You pause. Others pause. Even the goats pause. It's the sound used for royal ceremony. That's when you realise it's the 7th day since the stars disappeared. And in Babylon, 7 isn't just a number. It's sacred. It marks rest, ritual, rebirth. A man passing by mutters, "They'll have to do something today." You nod, even though you don't know what something means anymore. The sun is climbing as you join the slow procession toward the palace. Crowds thicken with every corner turned. Priests in crisp linen, nobles in deep-dyed robes, servants balancing fruit baskets atop their heads. At the gates of the palace plaza, guards let people through in small groups. There's tension in their shoulders. You wonder how much sleep they've gotten. Once inside, you see them, the full priesthood, lined in rows before the great altar. Their faces are painted in ceremonial ash. Their hands, raised to the sky, tremble just slightly. There's no music, no chants, just silence. Then, finally, the king steps forward. He wears white. No jewels, no crown, no sceptre. Just a simple robe, plain as sand. The symbolism is obvious. Even he is humbled now. "I have watched the heavens," he begins, his voice carrying, measured. "I have prayed, I have fasted, I have waited like all of you for a sign, and none came." The crowd shifts uneasily. "I do not claim to know the mind of the gods, but I know this. Babylon cannot walk blindly forever." A woman nearby whispers, "He's admitting weakness." A man responds, "No, he's asking for guidance." The king raises both hands. "Tonight, we will offer our voices, no blood, no fire, no fear, only voices. If the gods hear us, let them answer. If not, we will still sing." It's not what people expected, but somehow it's exactly what was needed. Historians still argue whether this so-called Night of 1,000 Voices ever happened. Some tablets reference the evening of great chanting, while others make no mention at all. A fringe theory suggests it was invented centuries later as a symbol of collective faith during cosmic silence. But whether literal or metaphorical, the impact is the same. You return home to prepare. People everywhere are gathering, not in temples, but in streets, courtyards, rooftops. Wherever voices can rise, you join a group on the ziggurat's lower steps, where families are laying blankets and lighting oil lamps. A priest walks past, offering scrolls with ancient hymns. You take one, but your eyes keep drifting to the sky. Still nothing. Then someone begins to hum. A child joins in. Then an old woman with cracked lips. Then you. Then dozens. Hundreds. The city begins to vibrate with sound. Not coordinated, not polished, just honest. You hear a sailor singing a river chant, a baker murmuring a prayer between verses, a soldier crying mid-hymn, gripping a copper charm like it's all he has left. No one conducts. No one leads. Babylon for once sings without direction. Somewhere far off, a horn blows. Another joins it. You feel it in your chest. Time loses meaning. You don't know how long you've been singing. An hour? 3? But the sky above remains unchanged, empty, unforgiving. And yet, it doesn't hurt as much tonight, because for the first time in a week, Babylon isn't whispering about stars. It's speaking directly to them. You catch your neighbour's eye. She's still holding the wax star you gave her. She presses it to her lips and smiles. Later, after the singing fades into scattered murmurs and soft prayers, you stay on the ziggurat alone. The air has cooled. A breeze stirs your robe. You lie back, arms behind your head, watching the nothingness. And that's when you realize something strange. You don't feel fear tonight. You feel ready. Not because you expect the stars to return, but because finally you understand. The sky may be silent, but you are not. You wake up late the next morning, throat dry and muscles aching. Singing for hours under a voiceless sky does that to a person. Your ears are still buzzing from the shared echoes of last night, and your dreams, if you had any, left no trace. Just the faint imprint of sound, and the warmth of being surrounded. When you step outside, the city feels different. Not brighter, not louder, but steadier, like a ship that stopped listing. The bakery's open again, and the smell of spice cakes wafts down the street. Someone's sweeping their stoop while humming under their breath. A pair of boys race past you with a carved wooden lion on wheels. Life, it seems, hasn't ended. Still, you look up. Still no stars. But you don't flinch this time. You just breathe, squint, and move on. By midday, word spreads quickly. New rituals are being performed. Not the old ones. These are different, unofficial, invented, adapted, and yet they spread like wildfire. You follow the noise to the temple of Adad, the storm god. His priests are standing barefoot in shallow water, chanting names of constellations as if summoning them back. A woman drapes herself in black linen embroidered with golden dots, and walks a spiral path etched into the temple floor, leaving behind small beads of myrrh. Every step, a star, she whispers. On the far end of the temple courtyard, a scribe draws star charts in the dirt using river mud. A child watches closely, then begins mimicking the gesture with a stick. "This one's the scorpion," the scribe says gently. "He protects dreams." Someone else is painting stars on her arms. "If they're not up there," she says, "they can live here." You spend the rest of the afternoon wandering from ritual to ritual. Some are solemn, some silly. One group is tossing pomegranate seeds into a fountain, making wishes. Another forms a line and leaps over a small flame while chanting, "Don't forget us, don't forget us." Historians still argue whether these makeshift rituals were encouraged by the priesthood or grew from grassroots desperation. Some suspect it was a mix, a people scrambling to fill the spiritual vacuum left by the sky's silence, while the priestly elite tried to steer the narrative. Others argue these moments reflect a deeper truth. When the heavens fail to speak, the people find new ways to listen. You pause beside a group performing a curious ceremony involving coloured sand. They form star patterns with trembling fingers, saying each name aloud. The lion, the archer, the goatfish, the great twins. As each shape forms, the wind scatters it just slightly, as if the sky itself is playing along. That night the city glows not with celestial light, but with the flicker of thousands of oil lamps. People are placing them in windows, on ledges, in rows along canals. You join in, lighting one and whispering the name of the first star you ever learned. For you, it was Sirius, the dog star. You can't even remember who taught it to you. Maybe your father, maybe a temple teacher, but it was always there, sharp and faithful above the city. Now it isn't. But your lamp still flickers. On the roof, your neighbour joins you again. She's holding a bowl of honeyed figs and a sheet of papyrus. "It's a song," she says. "I wrote it last night for the stars." You listen as she sings it. It's simple, sad, something about the sky having eyelids, about waiting for them to blink again. When she finishes, she smiles at you and says, "I used to be terrified of the dark. Not anymore." "Why not?" She shrugs. "Because now I know what it feels like when we light it up ourselves." Across the city, faint music rises. Flutes, drums, voices, even laughter. Laughter that isn't mocking the gods, but laughing in spite of their silence. You glance upward. Still nothing. But the night no longer feels empty. It feels reclaimed. For the first time since the stars disappeared, Babylon breathes like itself again. No one says it aloud, but a thought creeps through the city like a shared dream. If the gods won't speak, we'll write our own sky. Later, before sleep, you wander to the edge of the temple district. where a group of children has gathered with their parents. Someone has built a star projector of sorts, just a hollow gourd carved with pinholes. Inside, a tiny lamp flickers. When turned just right, the gourd casts patterns of light onto the nearby wall. The children gasp. The constellations come to life again, clumsy, incomplete, flickering, but alive. A little girl tugs at your robe. Look, the goatfish is back. You kneel beside her and smile. Maybe, you whisper, it never left. You go to sleep that night feeling strangely whole, not because the stars have returned, but because something else has. Hope. You wake the next morning before the sun, pulled from sleep by the faint sound of drums. Not war drums. Those are sharp and cold, meant to cut through bone. These are slow, steady, like a heartbeat echoing through the stones of the city. You throw on your robe and step into the pale morning. The streets are already alive. Today is not a market day. It's not a festival. And yet, Babylon moves, like it remembers something sacred. You follow the drums, past the weaving quarter, past the empty fountain where children used to play, through the gate of Shamash, where guards bow their heads as you pass, not to you, but to the silence that follows. Finally, you reach the foot of Etemenanki, the great ziggurat, still towering, still solemn, but now surrounded by an unusual gathering. This time it's not just priests, it's carpenters, bakers, scribes, beggars, merchants, a woman with a flower cart, a boy with a bird cage. They've all come, not to demand the return of the stars, not even to question their absence. They've come to honour it. A young priest stands at the base, his robe streaked with ink, his face tired but clear. He speaks softly, but his voice carries. 7 days we've waited, he says. 7 nights we've stared into the silence. And though the stars have not returned, our voices have. He holds up a small clay tablet. On it, a rough carving of a star and a hand reaching toward it. This is not scripture, he says. It's a wish. He places it in a clay jar at the foot of the temple. Others follow. One by one, people drop offerings, not of gold or grain, but of handmade stars. Wax, stone, wood, stitched into cloth, drawn in charcoal. They place them gently, reverently. This is not desperation. It's acknowledgement. Historians still argue whether Babylon ever officially recognized the event with a rite like this. No records remain that confirm it. But archaeological fragments, jars filled with star-shaped carvings, layers of soot on otherwise polished altars, hint at something unusual, something outside the typical ritual framework. You wander the edge of the gathering, observing faces. Some are tear-streaked, others peaceful. No one looks up anymore. Everyone is looking forward, or inward. You spot Amat Shamash, the temple scribe, kneeling in the dust, carefully placing a folded linen star into the jar. She looks up and sees you. "Do you think this matters?" she asks quietly. You pause. "Does it need to?" She smiles faintly, then rises and dusts off her robes. "We thought the stars were watching us," she says. "Maybe we were meant to watch them, and when they left, maybe it was our turn to become the watchers. It's a beautiful idea. You want to believe it." After the offerings are made, the priests light a small flame on the steps of the ziggurat. No incense, no chanting, just the quiet flicker of fire against stone. You stay until dusk, no stars, but no fear either. Instead, the city begins to move in a strange new rhythm. People gather on rooftops not just to watch, but to create. Musicians bring lyres and drums. Artists paint constellations on tiles. A stonemason carves a replica of the sky from memory onto the plaza wall. Each person builds their own fragment of the lost heavens. You find yourself doing the same. At home, you pull out a scrap of old parchment and begin sketching. Slowly, awkwardly, you draw the archer, the one that always made you feel safe as a child. Your lines wobble. You forget half the stars. But when you're done, it feels close enough. That night, your neighbour knocks again, this time with bread and a question. "Want to help me make sky lanterns?" You do. Together, you craft paper shells with tiny oil lamps inside. A group joins you, neighbours, strangers, even a retired priest with shaky hands who used to read dreams. You carry the lanterns to the riverbank. One by one, you light them, and one by one you let them go. The lanterns drift upward, slow and golden, reflecting in the black water as if creating a second sky. The breeze carries them out and up, and you watch them disappear into the darkness. A small boy gasps. "Look, the stars are back," you smile. "No," you whisper, "we're just remembering what they looked like." Across Babylon, lanterns rise. A city without stars becomes a city of lights. Small, human, defiant. Every floating flame a message. We're still here. We still remember. We still hope. You fall asleep that night with the scent of oil and parchment in your hair, a wax star beneath your pillow, and the faint hum of someone singing a lullaby to a sky that refuses to sing back. And yet, you sleep peacefully. Because even in darkness, Babylon has learned to shine. The next morning begins with a breeze, not hot and dry like usual, but cool and crisp, the kind that teases the hairs on your arms and makes old men declare, "Change is coming." You step outside and feel it too. The air carries a weight that's different from the days before, not heavier, quieter, as if the city itself is holding its breath. You walk slowly, past the neighbours who now greet each other with a knowing nod instead of words, past a potter who's shaping star-shaped amulets into his clay jars, past a courtyard where a group of children play a game called Catch the Constellation, which involves throwing painted pebbles into drawn circles. You pause to watch. One girl laughs so hard she falls over. It's the sound of life stitched back together. But something else is happening today. Something big. You follow the quiet tide of people flowing toward the palace. Again. But this time, it's not the king who has summoned Babylon. It's the Chaldeans, the famed stargazers, the scholars, the keepers of the heavens. They've called a public gathering at the base of the ziggurat. Rumour spreads fast. They have an explanation. No one knows if it's scientific, spiritual, or something in between. But after more than a week of silence, even a whisper from the Chaldeans is like thunder. You push through the crowd, managing to squeeze into a spot near the edge of the temple stairs. Dozens of white-robed astronomers line the steps. Each of them carries a tablet or scroll. They look like they haven't slept. One or two sway slightly as they stand, but their eyes, sharp, focused. At the centre is an older man with a voice like Riverstone. You've heard of him? Neremach, chief interpreter of celestial signs. He's known for predicting a lunar eclipse 6 years before it happened, which, honestly, feels more impressive than anything the gods have done lately. He steps forward. "We have searched the heavens," he begins. "We have scoured the charts, the clay records, the signs in the liver, the dreams of children, the shadows on the water." The crowd leans in, and we have found... A pause. Dramatic. Classic Chaldean move. Nothing conclusive. A collective groan rolls through the square like a grumpy ox. But Neremach continues unfazed. "We have ideas." He explains slowly, methodically. One theory suggests a massive cloud of unseen dust now lies between Earth and the stars. Another suggests divine withdrawal, not abandonment, but retreat. A third posits that the stars are not gone but have moved, beyond current calculations. Historians still argue whether the stars can ever be trusted again, he says, but trust is not given by the sky, it is built by the heart. You blink. Did a Chaldean just philosophize? A hush settles. Then he adds, "The sky may be silent, but it is not void. Listen to its quiet. That too is a message." You swear you feel something in your chest shift. Another priest comes forward holding a tablet. "We have decided," she says, "to name this time. It shall be called Enushamti, the silence of the stars." It sounds sacred, mournful, beautiful. You look around. People are crying again. But they're not tears of panic. They're tears of permission, to feel, to grieve, to wonder. A wave of stillness moves through the crowd like wind through wheat. Someone begins humming the same melody from the Night of 1,000 Voices. Others join in. You don't sing this time. You just listen. It feels holy. After the gathering dissolves, you head toward the riverbank. Along the way, you pass scribes carving Enushamti into fresh clay tablets. This moment is being recorded. You're living inside history. By the time you reach the water, the sun is lowering again. You sit on the stone edge, your toes barely grazing the surface, and stare into the reflection of the sky. No stars. Just deepening blue. And yet, you remember something you overheard days ago. What if this is a test? You're beginning to think that's exactly what it was. Not a punishment, not a plague, just a pause, a space where silence replaced certainty, where faith became less about answers and more about presence. You stay by the river until the sky turns navy, then black. You trace imaginary constellations with your fingertip in the air. The scorpion, the lion, the archer, and suddenly you're not waiting for them anymore. You're remembering them, holding them in your mind like old friends who moved away but still write. You wonder if this is what the gods intended all along, to make Babylon realize that meaning isn't something given, it's something created. Back at home, you lie in the dark, not afraid, not empty, but full of voices, lanterns, mud-drawn stars, whispered songs, shared meals, and a people who refuse to break in the dark. The stars are still gone, but somehow you're okay with that. The next morning begins slowly. No bells, no shouts, just a warm breeze curling through the alleys and rooftops, brushing dust off windows and waking cats from temple doorsteps. You stretch beneath your reed ceiling, still half expecting a knock, a trumpet, a star returned overnight, but there's no noise, no news, only the soft hum of a city learning how to live inside mystery. You rise anyway. Because now you know something Babylon has taken nearly 2 weeks to understand. You don't need the stars to start your day. At the baker's stall, the loaves are warm again. The price has returned to normal too, which feels like its own little miracle. You share a smile with a stranger in line. Both of you are still glancing up between bites, but less like people waiting for rescue, and more like people visiting a grave. You stroll through the side streets and find more signs of healing. Not hope exactly, but adjustment. A scribe is chiseling a new mural into a wall near the temple district. The city skyline with dozens of tiny human figures holding torches upward into a blank sky. Below it, the words, "We lit our own stars." You pause to admire it, then realize he's not working alone. Children are helping him, passing tools, painting outlines, filling in the spaces between. One girl is adding a goat in the corner. Another boy insists the stars should be different colours this time. Not white, he says. They should be green and gold and red. And no one corrects him. A woman nearby is setting up a stand to sell Inushamti amulets. Clay discs painted with a darkened sky and one faint dot in the centre. For remembering, she says softly, and for patience. You don't buy one. Not because you don't believe, but because you already have your own, that little wax star still tucked under your pillow. You make your way toward the Academy of Scribes, curious to see how the official records are shaping up. Inside, it smells like ink and oil and damp clay. The chief archivist waves you over. He remembers you from the early days when you asked for answers they didn't have. He hands you a fresh tablet. On it, a list of every known disappearance of the stars in Babylon's recorded history. There are only 2 entries. The first is vague, a few lines from generations ago referencing a night without signs. The second, 12 full lines of detail, dates, observations, ritual responses, civic reactions, emotional impacts, even theories. At the bottom, conclusion pending. You raise an eyebrow. The archivist shrugs. We may never know why it happened, but we'll know what we did with it. He gestures toward a nearby chamber filled with tablets. Babylon wrote everything else down, he says. Why not this? Historians still argue whether the silence of the stars fundamentally altered Babylonian astronomy, or if it was a temporary spiritual crisis folded back into tradition. Some scholars claim it made the priests more conservative. Others believe it opened the door to new, more personal forms of worship. What's clear is that something did shift, in the tablets, in the temples, and in the people. You pass through the scholar's garden and pause beneath a fig tree. Amat Shamash is there again, writing. You greet her, and she waves you over. I've been cataloguing the dreams, she says. What dreams? She smiles. They're coming back. You stare. Not every night, she adds. Not like before. But here and there, people are dreaming again. Some of them say they saw the stars. Others say they heard them. Heard? She nods. Like music, or like voices just at the edge of hearing. Nothing clear, just presence. You sit beside her on the bench. Do you think it means they're coming back, you ask? She closes her scroll and looks up at the bright blank sky. I think, she says slowly, we're finally ready if they don't. It's not the answer you hoped for. It's better. That evening, as the sun sets in long gold streaks across the rooftops, you join your neighbours for a small gathering on the plaza. No ritual this time, just dinner, flatbread, lentils, sweet beer. Someone brought pickled turnips. As you eat, someone begins humming. Then a flute joins in, then a hand drum. You lean back on your elbows, full, tired, and surrounded by laughter. For a moment you forget to check the sky, and when you do, it surprises you. How normal it feels not to see anything. The stars may have left, but the people stayed. And in a city built of dust and dreams and the bones of ancient gods, that means everything. You wake again before dawn, not from noise or nightmares, but from the absence of both. It's that soft grey hour when even the pigeons haven't found their voices, and for a moment the whole city of Babylon lies suspended in perfect stillness. You sit up slowly and press your palm to the cool stone floor. There's something comforting about the way the city breathes now, less like a lion roaring for attention, and more like an old ox chewing patiently beneath a fig tree. Outside, the sky is a pale canvas, still refusing to paint itself with stars. But this morning, you don't look up first. You look out, and what you see stirs something quiet inside your ribs. A man sweeping dust from his doorstep, a girl chasing a blue bee that's rolled down a slope, a stray dog lounging in the sun. Life has returned, not loudly, not boldly, but with that stubborn, familiar grace that only humans possess when they've survived something cosmic and inexplicable. You decide to visit the ziggurat again, not for answers, but for the same reason someone returns to the grave of a loved one, to sit, to think, to remember. The climb feels easier today. When you reach the mid-terrace, you see someone has arranged stones into star shapes, imperfect, a little crooked, but unmistakable. You smile. The priest you often see there, yes, the same one who once muttered "mute" like it was a revelation, joins you silently. He sits beside you, legs crossed, robes wrinkled. For a long time, neither of you speak. Then he says, "Do you know what the stars really were before they vanished?" You shake your head. "Hope," he says, "projected upward." You nod. That tracks. Historians still argue whether the Babylonians truly believed stars were divine beings or merely celestial messengers, but almost all agree they were seen as active, not passive decorations in the sky, but players in the great game of fate. Their disappearance wasn't just physical, it was existential. It robbed the people of Babylon of something even deeper than knowledge, agency. You and the priest watch the city wake up. A line of servants marches across the bridge carrying baskets of grain. A fishmonger opens his stall and yawns wide enough to frighten small birds. Across the canal, a group of children begins painting stars onto a temple wall using crushed flower petals. They don't even ask permission anymore. No one stops them. The priest chuckles. "We never thought to paint the sky ourselves." "Maybe we weren't supposed to," you say. "Or maybe we always were, and just forgot." You stay like that for a while, listening to the city move. Not because you expect revelation, but because silence now feels less like punishment and more like space. Room to wonder, to grow, to reclaim. Later that day, you find yourself in the Scholars' Quarter again, walking slowly past murals that have transformed since the first week of the event. Where once they depicted orderly star maps and planetary alignments, now they show people, ordinary Babylonians, carrying torches, drawing stars, becoming constellations. A new philosophy is taking shape. You visit a scroll shop run by a stooped man with fingers ink-stained for generations. He shows you a fresh set of writings from a fringe philosopher named Enlil. Her theory, that the disappearance wasn't about gods or omens, but about perspective. "Perhaps the stars haven't gone," her scroll reads. "Perhaps we have simply forgotten how to see them." You ask the shopkeeper what she means by that. He shrugs. "Maybe the gods didn't turn away. Maybe we did. Too many years of expecting answers. Maybe the stars left so we'd start asking better questions." That night, you visit the Canal District, where more sky lanterns are being launched. You help a small boy light his, and as it floats upward he asks, "Do you think the stars are watching us now?" You smile. Maybe they always were. Your neighbour finds you again, now a friend really, and hands you a cup of cool fig wine. "You know what I've been thinking," she says, swirling it lazily. "What if the stars had to go away? just so we could remember what they meant. You nod slowly. Absence makes the sky grow fonder. She laughs, nearly spilling her wine. Exactly. You clink clay cups and sip in silence, and then, just before turning in for the night, you find yourself back on your roof. Not because you're expecting anything, you're done expecting, but because it's a habit now, a comforting one. You lie down, stretch out, close your eyes. And in that quiet moment, with the sky still blank and the city still breathing, you realise something. The stars will return. Maybe not tonight, maybe not ever in the way they once did, but in stories, in dreams, in murals, songs and whispered bedtime tales. They're not really gone, they're just different now, and so are you. You begin to notice something odd in the days that follow, not in the sky, still blank and brooding, but in the conversations around you. People aren't asking when the stars will return anymore. They're asking what it meant that they left. Not just priests or philosophers, everyone. The date sellers, the brick haulers, even the woman who used to scream at pigeons outside the temple of Ishtar. It's as if Babylon has collectively turned from searching outward to searching inward. One evening, you pass a tavern near the artisan district and hear a group arguing over stew and half-empty jugs. Not about taxes, not about trade, about the nature of divine silence. If the gods withdrew the stars, one says, was it to punish us or protect us? Another slaps the table. You still think the gods did it? Maybe the stars left on their own. Or maybe, a younger voice cuts in, we just looked away first and they followed. It's a strange kind of comfort, this shift from fear to curiosity. No longer drowning in dread, the people of Babylon are swimming in questions. You walk on and find yourself drawn to the outer temple gardens, where scribes have begun hanging strips of papyrus from tree branches. Each strip bears a question or a theory, written by anyone willing to contribute. You stop to read a few. Did we take the stars for granted? Did the gods need silence to listen better? Were the stars ever real, or did we dream them into being? Some strips are signed, others anonymous, some are jokes. I bet Marduk misplaced the stars in his laundry basket. Still, they flutter like sacred leaves rustling in the breeze. A priest nearby explains, "This is the tree of unfinished thoughts. We don't answer them, we just let them breathe." Historians still argue whether the rise of this questioning ritual was part of an actual Babylonian tradition, or a poetic construct invented later. But records do suggest that during periods of astronomical uncertainty, temples opened special forums for theological debate. What's unique about this moment is its egalitarianism. This was no longer the exclusive domain of priests. Everyone was invited to wrestle with the silence. That night, a public forum is held outside the Temple of Nabu. Not a ritual, just a gathering. A circle of benches, oil lamps, no incense, no robes, just people. You attend. The high priest is there, but he doesn't speak first. Instead, a farmer from the outskirts rises and says, "I used to pray to the stars before planting. Now, I pray to the wind. It listens better." Polite laughter follows. Then a scribe stands. "The stars always told us what was coming, but now I think the silence is asking us what we want to be." Someone murmurs, "That's dangerous." "No," the scribe replies, "that's freedom." You glance around. No one argues. Some nod. Others sit quietly digesting. Then, surprisingly, the high priest rises. The chatter stops instantly. He clears his throat and says, "We have been the interpreters of the sky for generations, and now the sky has gone dark. We can no longer tell you what it means. But maybe that's the point. Maybe it's your turn to tell us." The crowd shifts, uncertain. Then someone begins clapping. Slowly. Quietly. But the sound catches. You leave that forum changed. Not because of any grand revelation, but because you realise the city is undergoing something radical. A transfer of spiritual power. Where once the heavens dictated, now the people deliberate. It doesn't stop with forums. Soon, children are asked to draw their own star charts in the temple schools. Not of what was, but of what could be. The results are beautiful chaos, stars shaped like birds, dancers, turtles. One child draws a fish with 10 eyes and names it the Watcher of Forgotten Wishes. His teacher weeps and pins it to the wall. In the palace, advisors begin recommending policy decisions without astrological guidance. One even jokes, We used to need Venus for every wedding date. Now we just ask the bride. A radical idea in Babylon. You wander through the market and hear a musician playing a new song. The lyrics go, "The stars went out, and so we lit a fire deep where heartbeats sit." The sky grew quiet. Gods withdrew. So now the gods look just like you. You stop in your tracks. You smile. Because somewhere between fear and faith, Babylon has stumbled into something unexpected. Agency. The stars had always told the people what to expect. Now without them, they've started choosing for themselves. Later that night, you sit on your roof with your friend, no longer just a neighbour. She's sewing star patterns into a shawl. "Do you miss them?" you ask. She doesn't answer right away. "I thought I would," she says, "but now I wonder if I only missed the feeling of being watched." You nod. "And now?" She ties off a knot in the thread. "Now I think I like being the one doing the watching." You look at the sky, still blank, still endless. But something in you shifts. You no longer feel like a passenger, you feel like a navigator. The stars may return, or they may not. But either way, Babylon has changed, and so have you. You wake to a city already in motion, not frantic or chaotic, but quietly determined. Babylon has the air of a people who've stopped waiting for the stars to come back and started learning how to move without them. The ziggurat still casts its long shadow over the city, but now it's joined by new symbols, painted murals on temple walls, clay carvings hanging from doorposts, handmade constellations strung on rooftops. The heavens haven't spoken in days, yet their absence has given birth to more stories than their presence ever did. You cross the bridge over the canal and pause to watch a group of fishermen casting their nets. One of them whistles an old sailing chant that used to be timed to the position of Polaris. Now he just sings it for rhythm, not direction. "We don't need the stars to find the fish," he says when he catches you watching. "They've always been in the same place. We just thought we needed permission." That phrase follows you the rest of the day. "We just thought we needed permission." You stop by the temple library out of habit, unsure whether you're looking for wisdom or just a quiet place to sit. Inside, Amat Shamash is organising scrolls into new categories, not by subject but by tone. Hopeful, questioning, angry, curious, she explains, labelling shelves with pieces of parchment. "We used to sort everything by discipline, now we sort by emotion. It tells a better story of who we are." She hands you a new scroll titled "The Sky Beneath Our Feet." You read the first line. "The gods did not stop speaking. We just forgot they also speak through bread, river water, and the sound of a sleeping city." You look up at her. "You wrote this?" She shrugs. "Part of it. So did a baker, a herder, and a widow who talks in her sleep." You smile. Babylon is writing its own scripture now. Historians still argue whether these people's texts survived beyond oral tradition. Clay fragments with non-standard cuneiform styles suggest a surge of grassroots storytelling around this time, non-priestly, non-official, deeply personal. Many of them describe not stars, but everyday rituals given new meaning, making bread, washing feet, sharing silence. As you walk through the streets, you see these ideas taking root. A mother ties blue thread around her baby's wrist, not for protection from spirits, but to represent an unseen sky that still holds us. A carpenter shapes a doorway lintel into the outline of a constellation, even though he no longer believes in omens. At a tavern, someone's carved a phrase into the bench. "We're made of dust, not stars, but we sparkle just the same." You sit there for a while, sipping sour wine, letting that thought settle into your bones. Later that afternoon, you attend a gathering in the outer courtyard of the Temple of Marduk. You expect another lecture, another carefully worded reassurance. Instead, you find something stranger. The priests have removed their ceremonial robes. They're seated on the ground with everyone else. One of them, an older man you vaguely recognise, speaks first. "We no longer speak on behalf of the gods," he says. "We speak beside you." That sends a ripple through the crowd. He continues, "If the stars return, we will listen, but until then we listen to each other." Someone in the back shouts, "Does this mean the temples are closing?" A younger priest responds, "No, it means they're opening. For stories, not just sacrifice." You sit with that. Stories, not just sacrifice. You begin to notice something strange as the days unfold. Babylon has grown more united in the absence of certainty than it ever was under divine clarity. The old power structures, priests above, commoners below, are bending, not broken, but softer, more porous. People share their dreams again. Not because they expect prophecy, but because they've learned that dreams are worth telling anyway. People offer prayers again, not upward, but outward. To neighbours, to children, to the sick and the lonely. A midwife you know begins collecting star stories from clients after every birth. So each child has a sky of their own, she says, even if the real one is still missing. One night, as you walk home through the quiet side streets, you hear someone playing a flute on a rooftop. It's a wandering tune. No beat, no melody, just notes floating upward like questions. You lean against a wall and listen. Then you realise something you hadn't noticed before. You haven't looked at the actual sky in hours. You glance up. Still nothing. But for the first time in 2 weeks, you don't mind. You realise it's not just that Babylon has learned to live without the stars, it's that Babylon has chosen to. Not out of rebellion, out of resilience. You pass a public wall where someone has scrawled in charcoal, "When the sky turned its face, we turned toward each other." You stop and stare at that for a long time, because it's true. The sky grew silent, but Babylon did not. And in that noisy, messy, deeply human response, something sacred was reborn. You wake to the scent of roasted barley and the distant rhythm of sandals on stone. A familiar sound now, like the heartbeat of a city pacing itself. Babylon is no longer holding its breath. It's breathing again, deeply, slowly, one collective chest rising under the weight of a starless sky. You make your way to the shrine district, where rumours have begun to spread that the priests are trying something new. Not more sacrifices, not chants or hymns, not star maps scratched into clay with shaky hands. Omens from anything. You arrive at the Temple of Enlil and sure enough a crowd has gathered. At the centre, 3 priests in full ceremonial dress kneel before a shallow bronze basin filled with oil. A boy steps forward, drops a small coin into the bowl and everyone leans in. The oil ripples, a shadow forms, then fades. One priest gasps. Another makes a note on a wax tablet. The crowd murmurs. "Did you see it?" "No, what was it?" "I think it looked like a fish, or a flame, or a foot, or a star." That's the thing about omens. You see what you need to see. Historians still argue whether this post-star period marked a turn toward irrational superstition or a creative reinvention of belief. The truth likely lives somewhere in the middle. What is religion, after all, if not organised meaning-making? And when the stars disappeared, when the most trusted signs went mute, the Babylonians didn't abandon interpretation. They simply changed where they looked. You watch as the next man steps forward, an older merchant with a dusty robe and a silver ring. He holds a small clay bird in his palm. The priest nods. "Release it." The man tosses the bird into the air, not to fly, but to fall. The way it lands on the ground matters. Is it face up, tail side, cracked, spinning? There's a pause as everyone stares. It lands still. The priest nods solemnly. The bird has no fear. Whatever that means, the merchant seems relieved. You stay for a while, watching as people bring all kinds of objects. Dyed threads, bits of bone, warm bread, animal teeth, dried figs. Each item dropped or stirred or burned in ritual, each one generating just enough meaning to soothe. You wonder, is this chaos, or is it freedom? You return home through the winding alleys behind the scribe's compound and see a boy drawing a star in the dust with his toe. A girl joins him and draws another. Soon, a cluster of children surrounds the spot, each scribbling shapes, some constellations, some imaginary. "Look," one says, pointing to a crooked triangle, "that one's the stubborn donkey." They giggle, then debate what its powers are. Someone says it grants courage. Another says it makes you grow extra teeth. Someone suggests it's just there to make the other stars feel normal. You smile as you pass. The adults are inventing omens. The children are inventing myths. And somehow, both feel equally valid. Later that day, in the Weavers' Quarter, you attend a gathering that calls itself the Circle of New Sky. There are no priests here, just poets, artisans, 2 elderly farmers, and a woman who claims she once saw a shooting star land. They sit on mats, pass around wine, and take turns telling stories about the first night the stars vanished. Each version is different. One man says he felt a pressure in his chest, like a god stepping on his ribs. A woman says she heard music that stopped mid-note. Someone else says she dreamed she was a star falling through water. You add your own memory, standing by the bridge, breathless, trying to blink stars back into being. The group nods, understanding not your words, but your feeling. At the end, someone asks, "Should we call this a miracle?" There's silence. Then someone else replies, "It doesn't matter what we call it. We're still here." That night, back at home, your friend, the neighbour with the stitched shawl, asks if you want to help with something. You follow her to a small open field behind the shrine district, where a group has gathered with bowls of coloured powder, string, and parchment. "We're making new omens," she says. You laugh. "How do you make an omen?" She grins. "We don't wait for signs anymore. We give the world something to respond to." She tosses a pinch of blue powder into the wind. It drifts, swirls, and settles into the grass. Everyone waits. A child whispers, "That means good luck." And no one disagrees. You spend the evening painting bits of cloth with dots and lines, not to record where the stars were, but to imagine where new ones could be. Some cloths show dragons, rivers, horses, hands. One man paints a cracked clay jar with a single bright dot inside. He calls it the Survivor. As the moonless sky darkens, the group hangs their creations from poles and strings them like lanterns. The cloths flutter in the wind, catching the glow of torches. The sky remains blank, but below it, a constellation of human persistence. You lie awake that night, staring at the ceiling, fingers still stained with red pigment. You trace a star on your palm with your thumb and think, if we never see them again, we'll still remember how they made us feel. And that's enough. Morning comes with a hush. Not the eerie, ominous kind that haunted Babylon in the early days of the disappearance, but a quiet full of potential, like the moment before a potter presses their thumb into fresh clay. You step out onto the street and feel it in the air. Something is building, but not tension, anticipation. You pass the courtyard where temple scribes once chiselled records of stars. They've since turned their chisels to people. A new relief is in progress, still unfinished but unmistakable. Men and women looking not upward but toward each other. A child offering a star to an old man. A group of workers planting torches in the earth. No gods, no thrones, just human beings creating light. The artist, a former priest who left the clergy just last week, nods as you pass. "We've worshipped upward long enough," he says. "Now we're building sideways." You keep walking. In the main plaza, a curious sight greets you. The temple council has gathered, but not in secret, and not in solemn robes. They stand barefoot, in plain linen, forming a circle around a single unlit torch. The high priestess steps forward and speaks. "We have fasted. We have prayed. We have listened for the stars." A long pause. "And now we speak to one another." She bends low and lights the torch, not with fire from the temple, but from a lantern carried in by a child. The message is clear. The divine has moved homes, from the heavens into the hands of the people. The torch is passed from one to another, each person whispering something as they take it. A blessing, a promise, a secret. No one knows, but everyone respects the silence. When the torch reaches the final priest, he holds it aloft and says, "If the stars no longer speak for us, then we must speak for them." Somewhere in the crowd, someone claps. It spreads. Not in thunderous applause, but in slow, rhythmic beats, a human heartbeat. Later you find yourself standing beneath the gate of Ishtar, once a symbol of celestial protection, now transformed. Someone has hung a banner between the two towers. "We are the omen now." Below it, children are handing out papyrus scrolls. Not orders, not prophecies, but questions, written in simple Akkadian script. What do you want to become? What do you hope your children remember? If you were a star, where would you shine? You take one. You don't answer right away. That evening, something remarkable happens. Not in the sky, in the city. At dusk, Babylon stops. Not because of fear, but because of choice. All around you, shops close early. Workers lay down their tools. Priests extinguish their lamps. Not because of an order, but because of a whisper. Tonight we pause, together. You gather at the riverbank along with thousands of others. No one speaks. You sit shoulder to shoulder, like pages in a book not yet written. And then you wait. Not for stars, not for signs, but for presence. The river gurgles softly. A baby cries and is hushed by a lullaby. The wind stirs a clay wind chime on a fisherman's hut. It's not silence. It's music with the instruments missing. And it's perfect. Somewhere behind you, someone strikes a drum. Once, then waits, then again. Others join in, claps, stomps. The beat begins to build, not fast, not loud, but steady. Babylon pulses. A woman begins to hum. You recognize the tune. It was sung on the first starless night. It's slower now, gentler, tired maybe, but still strong. People begin to sing. Others hum. A flute appears. A harp. Someone turns their water jug into a drum. There are no stars above, but the ground glows. Oil lamps, torches, painted lanterns swinging from strings, 1,000 flickers against the black night. And then, just for a moment, someone gasps. You turn your head. High above, near the eastern edge of the sky, something faint, a pinprick, a dot. You blink. You hold your breath. It's there. One, just one. Barely more than a suggestion, but real. A star. Someone begins crying. Not loudly, not with panic, with relief, with joy. Others don't see it. Some squint and shake their heads. Some call it imagination, but it doesn't matter. Because even the idea that it might be real is enough. That night, no one sleeps. Because that night, hope becomes more than ritual. It becomes evidence. You don't remember falling asleep, only waking up on the riverbank with dew on your robe and the faint ache of stone beneath your back. Around you, others stir slowly, blinking under the weight of what may have been a dream, or maybe more. The moment you sit up, your eyes go skyward. Still blank, the single glimmer you saw last night, gone, if it was ever there. But somehow, it doesn't hurt. You expected disappointment, maybe even anger, but what you feel is something gentler, acceptance. The kind that doesn't mean giving up, just letting go. Around you, Babylon rises with the dawn. People stretch, yawn, share dried figs and sleepy nods. No one seems frantic. No one cries. In fact, someone near you chuckles and says, "Typical gods, just enough of a sparkle to keep us guessing." And that's the energy now, not grief, not urgency, curiosity. Was it a true star? A trick of the eye? An ember from a lantern drifting too high? Historians still argue whether anyone truly saw a star that night. Some records describe a small light above the eastern gate. Others call it a mass hallucination born from exhaustion and hope. There is no consensus, and that's what makes it perfect. Because now Babylon has learned to live inside the question, not the answer. You walk back toward the city proper, and everything feels changed. Subtly, quietly, but absolutely. The temple bells ring again, but not for sacrifice or royal decree. They toll once, and once only, marking the end of something. Not an era. A silence. You visit Amat Shamash that afternoon. She's in the courtyard copying scrolls with a group of young students. They aren't working on astronomy charts anymore. They're writing poems. You pick one up at random. It reads, "The stars are shy, or maybe wise. They left to let us find our eyes." You read it twice. Then you sit. Amat smiles as she hands you a wax tablet. "Go on," she says. "Add your voice." You don't write right away. You listen to the children's soft voices as they brainstorm metaphors. One compares the missing stars to a mother playing hide-and-seek. Another calls them seeds, buried so deep we forgot to water them. Eventually you write, "We lit lamps when the sky went blank. Turns out we were always holding matches. You're not a poet." But in this new Babylon, it doesn't matter. You're a witness. That's enough. Later, you pass through the bazaar and realize the sky is no longer the main topic of conversation. It's drifted to the background like a long, unsolved riddle that everyone's content to leave unfinished. The potter talks about a new kiln technique. The butcher complains about goat prices. The gossip at the well isn't about the gods. It's about someone sneaking kisses behind the temple of Nergal. Life has returned. Not in spite of the mystery, but with it. That evening you climb the ziggurat one last time, not for answers, just to sit in the breeze and watch the lamps twinkle across the city like fallen stars. A priest joins you, the same one who called the sky mute 2 weeks ago. He doesn't speak for a long time. Then he says, "I used to think the gods shouted. Now I think they whisper, or sometimes they just wait." You nod. He smiles faintly and adds, "Or maybe they're letting us take the next line in the story." You look up at the blank sky. Still no stars, but beneath it, Babylon glows. In lanterns, songs, chalk constellations on stone walls, in the shared gaze of neighbours, in the hands of children building futures no prophecy can predict, and in you, the silence that once felt like abandonment now feels like permission, to wonder, to speak, to create. The sky hasn't changed, but you have, and maybe that's the real miracle. You don't rise early the next morning, not because you're tired, but because there's no longer the compulsion to check the sky first thing. It's amazing how quickly even the most unsettling silence can become a companion. When you finally do stir, it's to the gentle sound of weaving looms and a rooster crowing 2 courtyards over. You stretch, dress, and for the first time in days, take your time. Today feels like a bridge between what Babylon was and whatever it's quietly becoming. You wander through the scholars' district, half hoping to see someone argue about celestial calculations again. Instead, you find a woman painting a mural on the side of a scroll house. Not stars this time, not gods, just people, laughing, planting, sitting under trees. Above them, a sky not full of light but colour, swirls of red and blue, gold leaf pressed into whirls, a kind of kaleidoscopic sky that seems to say, "We imagined this, and that is enough." She sees you staring. "I figured," she says with a smirk, "if we're going to make up the heavens, they might as well be beautiful." You nod. They always were. "But now," she adds, "they're ours." You continue on, eventually arriving at a small amphitheatre near the western wall. It's mostly used for recitations and impromptu debates, but today it's filled with citizens passing around a single clay tablet. On it, a new proposal, a festival. Not to worship the stars, but to commemorate their silence. A young priest reads aloud, "Let there be a night without rituals, only lanterns. Let each person tell a story. Let there be no temple walls, only open spaces. Let it be called the night the sky listened." You can feel the crowd shift. Some are unsure. Others lean forward. A woman stands. "We should make cakes shaped like stars, empty centres, honey inside." Someone else adds, "And let children wear painted cloaks. Let them be the constellations." The crowd begins to buzz. What was once fear has become festival. Historians still argue whether the night the sky listened was ever formalised. Some tablets reference a festival where stars were painted in ash and songs were sung without words. Whether these came from this very moment or were imagined later is impossible to know, but what matters is how the event feels. Like a new myth being born, not from power, but from participation. That night, you sit beside your friend again, watching a group of children rehearse a play they made up on their own. It's called When the Stars Got Lost. There's a boy dressed as the moon who carries a satchel of invisible light. There's a girl who plays a priest who forgets how to pray. And a chorus of children chanting nonsense phrases that somehow feel like ancient wisdom. The sky went quiet, so we grew loud. We built a fire and fed it proud. You laugh, you cry, you applaud. After the show, the children hand out pieces of clay, each marked with a different shape. "Make your own constellation," one says. "Give it a story." You sit with your friend and shape a crooked line with 3 dots at the ends. "What's this one?" she asks. You smile. "It's called the Lantern Carriers. They don't know where they're going, but they go anyway." She presses hers beside yours. "Mine's the listening bowl. It catches all the wishes people whisper when they think no one's listening." You both pause and look up. The sky's still blank, but neither of you feels small beneath it anymore. You walk home slowly, passing homes lit from within. At one house, a family is gathered around a painted star map on the floor. They're arguing over which imaginary star gets to be the luckiest. At another, someone has placed offerings not on an altar, but in the window, so the sky can see us if it decides to peek back. You hear music, always music now, not formal hymns. Formal, street songs, lullabies, dances in sandals and clapping hands. Babylon doesn't mourn in silence anymore. It mourns in motion. Back in your home, you pull out your wax star from beneath the bed. You place it on your windowsill, not as a beacon, as a thank you. Then you lie on your mat and close your eyes. Your last thought before sleep isn't whether the stars will return. It's whether, in some quiet corner of the cosmos, they're watching. Not as gods, but as old friends. You awaken in the middle of the night. No sound stirred you. No dream yanked you from sleep. You simply wake. It's the kind of moment that feels given, not caused. A breath you didn't know you needed. The city lies still outside your window, not dead, just resting in the deep hum of sleep that even mighty Babylon must surrender to. You sit up and pull on your robe, then climb to the rooftop without really knowing why. Habit, maybe. Hope. Or just the soft magnetism of the sky, even when it's blank. You arrive at the top and pause. At first you think it's your imagination again, a trick of sleeplessness, a glint from someone's lantern down the street. But no, there it is. A single point of light, far to the west, barely more than a whisper. You rub your eyes. It doesn't go away, you don't speak, you don't move. You just stare, holding your breath as though the slightest exhale might send it flickering back into absence. But it stays, a lone star, not a skyfall, not a cascade, just one. And somehow, that's more powerful than 1,000 ever could have been. You sit down slowly, as though in reverence, and rest your hands on your knees. For the longest time, you don't do anything but watch it hang there, unwavering, in a sky that had forgotten how to answer. Eventually your friend appears beside you, wordless, drawn by the same invisible thread. She sees it too. Her eyes go wide, then soft, and then she laughs. Not loud, not manic, just a single note of joy that spreads through her shoulders like sunrise. You see it? You whisper. She nods. I don't care if it's real, she says. I'm keeping it. You smile. Maybe it's the same one from the other night. She shrugs. Or maybe it's new. She leans her head on your shoulder and you sit together in silence. Two people, one star, infinite meaning. The sky doesn't flood open. No constellation rejoins the heavens. But this small light, this quiet, stubborn star is enough. And it does something extraordinary. It doesn't disappear, not in 5 minutes, not in 10, not after you close your eyes and open them again. It stays. You don't call for others, you don't run through the streets or bang on doors, because this moment isn't for spectacle, it's for witnessing. And when the first colour of dawn begins to bleed across the horizon, the star doesn't fade. Not right away. It lingers, as if to say, I never left. You just had to learn to see me differently. You finally rise, limbs stiff, heart full. The city begins to stir around you. The rooster cries. A cart rumbles over cobblestone. Somewhere someone spills water and curses softly. But you still feel wrapped in something sacred. You make your way down to the street, and already rumours ripple from neighbour to neighbour. Did you see it? I think it was real this time. No, my brother said it was a god returning. My cousin said it was just Venus. You pass them all with a quiet smile. Let them debate, let them theorise. The truth doesn't need to be agreed upon to be felt. You arrive at the temple district just as the high priestess emerges from the sanctuary, her arms bare, her face lined but radiant. Someone asks her directly, was it a sign? She doesn't answer right away. Then she says simply, it was a beginning. Not a return, a beginning. You continue your walk, and as you pass a wall still wet with fresh paint, you see a new message scrawled in large letters. The sky blinked, and we blinked back. That's it. No hymn, no oracle, just that. And it's perfect. The rest of the day unfolds gently. Merchants don't shout as much. Priests smile more easily. Children keep glancing up like they're playing hide and seek with the stars. You find yourself helping your friend hang a lantern above her doorway. When she lights it, she doesn't say a prayer. She just hums. And when the first true night since that tiny spark begins to fall, you go up to the roof again. Not in expectation, but in gratitude. The sky is still mostly dark, but now you understand something you didn't before. It's allowed to be, and so are you. Whether the stars return or not, you know what to do with the darkness. You light your own. The final night begins quietly. You stand once more on the rooftop that has, over these many nights, become less a perch for watching and more a sanctuary. The city below glows not with prophecy or panic, but with people simply being. You can hear laughter down the alley, music from someone's reed flute, the gentle splash of water being carried home. You tilt your head up. The sky is again a canvas of black. And that's okay. Because now you don't wait with fear. You don't scan for signs or count pinpricks of light to soothe your uncertainty. You simply sit, you breathe, and then something shifts, not in the heavens but in you. You feel it. A deep calm not tied to any star's return or priest's ritual. A knowing. Babylon has moved on. not by forgetting the stars, but by learning to live without needing them to speak first. The temples still stand, of course, but now their doors are open wide, no longer reserved for holy elites. Children run through them. Artists paint the walls with new myths. The gods are still honoured, but with questions now, not just chants. Wonder has taken the place of fear. You pass the old astrologer's tower the next morning and find the Chaldean priests have repurposed it into a school. Not for omens, but for ideas. They teach writing, numbers, wind patterns and stories. One section of the stone wall is now a giant chalkboard where anyone can scrawl a message or a thought. You watch as someone writes, "Even if the stars are silent, we are not." That afternoon, the high priestess herself comes to speak at the plaza. There is no robe, no sceptre, just her voice. "We asked the sky for answers," she says, "and when it didn't answer, we learned to speak for ourselves." No one applauds, no one shouts, but everyone hears her. Later, as the sun sinks low, you walk the old path along the Euphrates, where you once saw priests toss sacred herbs into the water. You see a young boy, maybe 6, skipping stones. He sees you watching and grins. "I threw my star into the river," he says. You raise an eyebrow. "Why?" "So it would float all the way around the world." He nods like it's the most obvious thing ever. Maybe someone else needs it more now. And just like that, your heart aches, not with sadness, but with something brighter, like the warmth of fire after a long cold walk. That night, as the wind picks up and the lanterns sway softly on every balcony, you sit on your rooftop for the final time. The stars don't return, and somehow you don't expect them to, because they were never really what you were looking for. You were looking for meaning, for connection, for something to remind you that you're part of something bigger, even if that something is just a city of other people also trying to make sense of things. And you found it, in flickering oil lamps, in chalk constellations drawn by children, in whispered prayers spoken without needing an answer, in the warmth of a hand on your shoulder. The heavens may have darkened. But Babylon? Babylon now shines, and as you close your eyes for the final time in this long story, the last thing you hear is not the hush of absence, but the hum of presence, of life, of people, of you. And now, as your breath softens and your body settles into stillness, let the echoes of ancient Babylon fade gently into the quiet of your room. You've travelled far tonight, from the towering ziggurats and shadowed temples to silent rooftops under a starless sky. You've watched a city unravel and reweave itself, not by returning to what it once was, but by becoming something entirely new. It's okay now to let go of the story. You don't need to hold on to every name or every detail. Just carry the feeling, the way Babylon learned to glow in the dark, the way the silence of the heavens became a canvas for human light. Let that feeling cradle you now. Inhale slowly, like drawing in the warmth of a distant lamp. Exhale, like releasing a question you no longer need answered. There is no need for certainty here, no stars to interpret, no omens to decode. Just the rhythm of your breath, the softness of your bed, and the knowledge that even when the sky goes quiet, you're never truly alone. Let your thoughts drift like the slow current of the Euphrates. Let the music of the city's new heartbeat lull you deeper. And as sleep approaches, gentle and steady, imagine that single star, faint but unwavering, hanging in the sky not above Babylon, but above you, watching, waiting, whispering nothing at all, and somehow saying everything. Good night, traveller. Sleep well. 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 Sleep well.